I'm not sure if that's a round of applause for waking up this morning and managing to be here on time, but I think we all collectively thank Andreas and the team for starting at 10 this morning instead of 9 o'clock. I'm pleased to see so many people here this morning. I'm sure we'll have a few more come up from the breakfast room over the next few minutes. This morning's session is going to be about screens. Lots of good, interesting debate and information about the behaviors that we all have and how we think about measuring some of those behaviors on screens from big to small. Remember to check your app. There's going to be lots of news and information in the app, and then to send questions in. I know from the session yesterday, the questions worked really well in the app, so if you've got questions, let's get them sent in, and then we'll cover them at the end of each session. The first session is going to be Scott and Vasilis, and they're going to talk on behalf of the Mobile Marketing Association. So welcome, Scott, to the stage now.
Good morning, everyone. This is a presentation primarily by Vas from the Mobile Marketing Association about work that they did. The ARF's involvement, though, is worth noting in that's the two of us. So it's about what neuroscience can tell us about cognition and how that might inform our views of opportunities to see. One of the big debates in our field, of course, is what's the right standard for measuring opportunities to see, measuring exposures. And there are different aspects of that debate, some of those very much involved in the current discussion about the proposed duration-weighted standard that the MRC has put forward. But an earlier part of that debate is really about when the clock begins. And that can be a convention that is just based on what an advertiser is willing to pay for as to when an opportunity to see begins. But there also is some empirical work that can be done to try to discover what the mechanisms are and the speed to cognition. And that's really the focus of this study. Because it is a contentious and highly debated topic that could inform our views of a standard, the Mobile Marketing Association approached us at the ARF and became actually the very first group to go through the certification process that we've established there. So I wanted to just describe that briefly to you because I think this is a perfect example of why we created this certification program. We all know that it's very easy to dismiss certain studies because we think they bought the result in advance. To take a look at who sponsored it or who paid for it, and say, oh well, that was a predetermined result. The ARF basically invites any of you who have such a study that you want to put into the public square to consider going through this kind of process. It's a three-phase process. The first involves submitting to us in advance the literature review, what questions are being addressed, what's the design, what's the sample, basically frame the whole thing out for independent review by the ARF and blind review by outside academic reviewers. Phase two involves turning over to us the raw data, and we will independently verify that the calculations are correct, that the right statistics were used, that we can replicate the calculations, and very importantly, that there were no selective cherry-picking of results, setting aside inconvenient findings that don't support a hypothesis. So this is, very rigorous third-party review, and again put out for independent assessment by blind reviewers who don't know who did the study, but they have expertise in the field. And both of those phases generated some fairly interesting criticisms of the approach that was taken. So those are incorporated in the full result reported by the Mobile Marketing Association. You're in this sort of radical transparency vein, you're invited to take a look at any of that as well. Phase three is probably the most exceptional in that once it's all said and done, an anonymized version of the raw data are available through the ARF. So any of you who don't like the results that Vas is going to lay out, you're all invited to come and analyze them for yourself. Have at it. We host the data. It's, again, in the spirit, in the same way that if a controversial finding comes out of MIT, they make the data available to Caltech to replicate. And it's our view that that's really how we establish that nobody's cooked the books here. It might be wrong, but if it's wrong for the right reasons. They played by the rules of science. So with that intro, here's Vas.